YouTube, and then we're also streaming to our Facebook community that we've got that's got about 1,500
Oh, cool,
people in it.
man.
But um, so make sure this all works. Technology is a blessing, and sometimes can also be a
Trust me,
curse.
man. I feel you. I
I've seen you've been doing a lot of interviews too, so I see we're up on Facebook, so we'll get
Perfect.
rolling. Uh, First off, I want to say that I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. For those of you that are boxing or MMA fans, you've probably heard this man's voice before because he's all over the place. Uh, you did the big fight, the Mayweather and McGregor fight. You did all the tour stops leading up to the fight, and then you did the fight. You're doing Premier Boxing
champions. Yep.
Champions right now. You've been on ESPN, Showtime, HBO, Fox Sports, and I'm sure there's other ones that I'm missing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been very
And
fortunate, bro. Absolutely.
not only that, but the most surprised I've ever been was I turn on HBO and I turn on Cat Williams. I think it was his priceless
Yep, that's
special,
correct.
and out comes Ray to announce him at the beginning of the show. And I was at first I was like, "Is that Ray?" Like I'm pretty sure I know that voice, but you had a nice little get up on. So you've been all over the place, and it's awesome to see because when we first met, we were talking about a little local MMA show with like 3,000 people
Mm,
there, a good production,
yeah.
a great production, but you were doing like regional stuff at that time. And then the next thing I know, I see you flying to Brazil and all over the world to do
Yeah.
different stuff. And I always knew you had the chops. Your voice is just it's very unique and awesome. But I love to see it. I love to see the success because you've always been a hard worker. So I enjoy you. I enjoy having you on the show tonight, and thank you again for taking some time out of your
Oh,
day.
anytime, Rick. We go way back to the AFA days, Absolute Fighting Alliance. Like, I remember where I come from, and that was a wonderful promotion with Justin Villela and Cody Casagrande, Steve Staley. It was a wonderful, it was a good group to work with, guys that were just trying to put on quality MMA events. And the fans in Fort Wayne, look, I've been all over the place. And Fort Wayne is one of those regional pockets that I love the fans there. People came out to Pierre's when we were doing events there. We did an event outside, had an opportunity to meet a lot of lifelong friends. And you know what? We were there for several years. I mean, the fights. I mean, Rocky France is one of the. I think he's like the Arturo Gatti of local MMA with what he was able to do and the wars that he had, and just watching the guys grow there and blossom down there. People don't understand that in the Midwest, there's a lot of quality combat sports, and AFA was a wonderful representation of that, and to be able to be down there and watch these guys grow and develop. And we all grew and kind of expanded our lives. I mean, you, in terms of what you were doing, you were just up and out marketing wise, and now look what you're doing. So, I mean, we've all kind of branched off and are doing our own thing and successful. But man, I do miss those AFA days because they were special, especially the after parties too.
Yeah, I tell my team sometimes because now I don't drink very much. I don't go out. I don't do anything. And I said there was a time when that story was a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I can specifically remember you and I sitting at IHOP one night at like 4
Uh huh.
a.m. and both of us could barely talk, and we were about passed out on
Yeah.
the table at IHOP. So we had some really really good times. Um, I enjoyed all of them, and it was a sad day because you weren't there for one. But when we had the meeting that the production was going to be ending, Justin was sick at that time or just recovered from being sick, and their lives were going a different way. So that was some fun times and a great production, especially for a local regional production. I thought those guys did a hell of a job putting that together, and the fights were great and always had a blast. And the outdoors one was the first one that I met you at, and it wasn't until you were announcing FortWayneNightOut.com
Yeah.
and my name, and I was like, damn, dude, My name sounds real good when it comes out of that dude's mouth.
Yeah, well, we had some great times, and again, it's just the guys that are fighting at the top, they all start somewhere, and it's important, especially now with the coronavirus going on, Rick, and this pandemic is once local events start to come back and people can start to go to places and be safe about it, that we support these local events because they're the lifeblood of the sport of combat sports in general. Like you have to, you don't go from playing. This is not like the NBA where you could potentially go from high school ball to the G League to the NBA. You got to go and start off in the amateurs, then you turn pro, and you got to start somewhere. And local events are where
Hmm.
it's at. We need to support the local promoters so that the guys can graduate to the national and world level.
Absolutely. And speaking of coronavirus, you've got an inside look into a professional sport
Mm.
that none of us in our group, nobody on my team has that type of view and insight into that and how it's affecting a professional sports organization. With you and the premier boxing champions, how are you seeing that, and what are the athletes saying to you? Because I know you're interviewing
Mm.
a lot of these boxers. I see your videos drop
Yep.
all the time. What are these guys saying about their fears and their concerns, and or are they just ready to get back in the ring and
I
fight?
think that's what it is, Rick. Is that look? Everyone is maintaining social distancing, being safe about things, being very extremely sanitary when it comes to washing your hands anytime you go out. Wearing the face mask, stuff like that. But these guys, when it comes to prize fighters, they're used to fighting, so they are, eating right, maintaining their shape. I know several guys have access to gyms that they go by themselves or with their trainer, and they just have access to the gym. So they're working out, preparing themselves because, from what I'm gathering, the landscape of boxing is once we get back, it's going to be bang, 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 because guys need to fight, guys want to go at it. And the one thing that I'm hearing and talking with the guys is fighting without crowds. We're so used to crowds of, no matter what the size is. If you're in a small casino, you're looking at a couple thousand people. If you're at Staples Center, 20,000 plus. MGM Grand, same thing. But now it's going to be fighting without fans, at least for the foreseeable near future. So, how are they going to respond? I was watching the UFC. There were 3 UFC events last week. Bravo to Dana White, his entire staff for pulling that off and doing it in safe conditions down in Jacksonville. The fact that the fighters can hear the commentators. So, from my standpoint, when I come back, how does that work? Are guys going to hear my analysis of the fight? I'm not particularly fond of that because I don't like giving an edge either way because I'm giving you, the viewer, my honest analysis as to what's going on. But that is not to be heard by the fighters. So how do we be able? How do we? Where do we put the broadcast position? I'd like to see it back a little bit without the fans so that they don't hear me. But I also got a loud voice. Just ask my girlfriend; she'll tell you. And it's the whole thing is they might still hear me even if I'm 50, 60 feet away. So that's another challenge. And but again, it sounds like we are going to. Like the states are starting to open up. Cases are being stagnant, if not maybe going down. So I'm optimistic. The first time in a long time that we're hearing some positive news. Let's all remain safe about it. I'm not saying put 80,000 people in a football stadium, but it's good that we are making strides to try to get back to whatever normalcy we may have moving forward, especially in boxing.
Yeah, I think that Dana White needs a lot of credit for that because I mean, from the get go, he said this is something that we need if people are willing to come back and play. The dude had an island he wanted to have fights on,
Yeah.
and I think he has pushed it to the point where a lot of people are like, yeah, you know what? After seeing the wrestling do their event with nobody in the stands and everything like that, that he's really pushed, and I think a lot of people are starting to think the same that he has been thinking for quite a while now, and him putting on them fights last weekend really kind of turned a corner because I think this week we've already seen a lot of places that weren't willing to open up say, you know what, we can open up,
Mm-hmm.
and I think personally the big thing is for any of the organizations that open up, you got to do it knowing that when you get these guys together, somebody might get the virus,
Hmm.
somebody might test positive, but you can't just stop everything after one person gets it.
No.
Everybody's got to be willing to understand that it's going to happen at some point. I think we just got news in the past couple days that the rookie from Washington, Antonio Gandy Golden, was tested positive. So it's going to happen, and these sports have to be willing to continue going, and obviously strenuous testing, making sure when guys are coming into the gym or into the
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 arena.
locker
Yeah.
room that they're being tested and temperature taken and making sure that they're not showing signs for this to better protect everybody. But right now, I feel like every sport that's supposed to be coming back, except for baseball, might be coming back. The baseball players seem to be a little more timid about returning to the game than the other sports that we're seeing, that the basketballs and the hockeys and boxing and golf and all those. Baseball seems to be the one that is kind of playing tug of war a little bit harder than the rest of them. Uh, with your inside knowledge, just in the sports field, is that what your feeling is
Yeah, that's what I'm
with
hearing.
everything?
I think that the players are, it's all, it comes down to salaries. Do they want to prorate their salaries? Do they not? There's discussion about half a season, an 81 game season when it comes to Major League Baseball. Where are you going to put, these teams? Is it going to be very much like spring training, Arizona, in Florida? When are teams able to come back? Are they going to be able, they were in training or spring training already. Do you give them a month? Do you give them 2 weeks? I read some of the bullet points. There's to be, guys are not permitted to shower at the, facilities. They are to shower in their hotel rooms. Are they going to be away from their families for these 3 or 4 months? Are they going to be permitted to see their families during that time period? I know that there's no spitting, that they don't want, there's a lot of things. No mascots. There's a DH. It looks like minor league baseball won't be a thing this year. Expanded rosters. So all these different things in which Major League Baseball is dealing with. But I am hopeful that we do get somewhat of baseball. But if they do not want to play, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, Rick. And I'll tell you why, is because they haven't started yet. So if you haven't started, well, okay, just wait till next year. The NFL, they want to come back in September. College football, I'm hopeful, is going to come back in September. But the items that we have to look at are the NBA and the NHL. They have already been well into their seasons, and I think they need to finish. It is disheartening to me, looking at this entire situation, that the spring sports in college were unable to finish, because how many March Madness was taken away because of this pandemic, and there were a lot of quality teams in collegiate sports that were right there, number one, whether it be baseball, or college baseball, or men's golf, or NCAA basketball, that were right there, and now that is a thing of the past. And it's gut wrenching to me, that's to see the younger players in collegiate sports be affected. But if baseball doesn't want to play, that's okay. The NBA, though, NHL, I think they need to resume, hopefully, if they all agree to do that under safety conditions.
Yeah, I don't disagree with most of that, especially talking about the younger players, even the high school players that maybe hadn't, there's a lot of spring sport athletes that grow a lot between their junior and senior years of high school that weren't on college radars before that senior season, and now those kids don't get the opportunity to showcase that talent with an athletic season, no matter what sport they're playing. That's that's heartbreaking for me for those kids, because I mean, we all know how high school is. You go from being skinny to bulking up in 1 year in high school. You grow so fast. So in the same thing, a lot of guys in college mature a lot from year to year. So yeah, there's a lot of kids that their futures were drastically affected by this, by not having the season. Now, when it comes to baseball, I heard it was somebody from Vayner Sports talking about how there are rumors that if baseball doesn't play, there could be up to 10 teams that could have to file for bankruptcy.
Wow.
And that could be gut wrenching to MLB baseball. And I don't know how they would rectify that. I'm sure if there's 10 teams, I'm sure 5 of them are going to somehow find a way to get the money. But, your Tampa Bay Rays got to be on there. They can't
Yeah.
get anybody in their stadium anyway. I don't know how much different not having it is
True.
than having it. But yeah, so that's a little bit worrisome because we're already seeing the NFL rumors of them losing 30 to 50% of their cap for next year if they play up to half of the season without fans in the stands. So, if they're already talking about knocking down the salary for the next 2 years, not having anything at all, because then you're not selling as many jerseys.
No.
Because even if you're playing on TV, people are going to go on fanatics.com and buy some jerseys and whatnot. If that's not right in front of them, it's going to be a lot harder to sell any of that merch, any of that. You're obviously not getting your beer sales already because there's not going to be people in the stands. Um, there's a lot of money being lost by professional sports right now, which is obviously why the hockeys and the basketballs are trying to find a way to get back. But my question about basketball is,
Mm.
are they just going to come back and do that NCAA style tournament? Or are they going to finish off their regular season and then have a regular, 5, 7 game series type run through their finals?
Well, from what I'm gathering, Rick, is that if they are to come back, it sounds like the teams that they're not going. I mean, from I haven't heard anything particular about this, but I don't think they're going to jump right into the playoffs. I think that's unfair for everybody. So I know that there's going to be a couple of weeks of kind of getting back, having about a month training camp. There's talk about the NBA playoffs being held in Orlando. Also, Las Vegas is on the radar as well. The NBA wants to conclude by Labor Day with the playoffs intact. So you figure, the playoffs last about 2 months or so. So we may have a potential 5 games to go in the regular season ended. Or I can, if they are really focused on this July deadline, then they're going to have to expedite the process and maybe jump into the playoffs. But I would think 5 games regular season left with teams to go ahead and go at it, because I know that the lower tier teams still have some jostling to do. There's a big difference between being an 8 seed and being a 6 seed. There's a big difference between being a 6 seed and a 5 seed, or being a 4 seed. So those are all very much in play. I think that Adam Silver is very conscientious about. What I do know is that it's likely that the NBA playoffs will probably be not in the cities of the home team. So home court advantage is going to be out the window, which, I mean, I think that the guys just want to go ahead and play, but also it does affect, a team's ability. You want to, you're playing all year to try to secure home court advantage throughout the playoffs, because it's your arena, your gym. You get to sleep in your bed. You're having teams come all the way to either Houston or Los Angeles, whatever the case may be. But it looks like things are going to be evil or even playing field, and we're going to see, Orlando or Vegas or both be a part of the NBA playoffs. Now, where the NBA finals will take place, I don't know, but it sounds like we're making a move that basketball will be back sooner than later.
Yeah, and that's great because obviously you're from up near Chicago,
Mm.
and like myself, you're a Bears and a Bulls fan. I think we differ a little bit on the baseball side. I think you're
Yes,
a little South side, and I'm a little
I am.
North side. But we just we just got the Last Dance. I seen you posting about it. As guys growing up, Michael Jordan fans, it was real great insight. From a professional aspect, though, do you think that the documentary was biased, slanted towards Michael Jordan? We're hearing Horace Grant came out
Mm.
talking shit today.
Mm-hmm.
Some other people have talked shit about how it's just Jordan had, last cut on it, and only put in there what he want. I have my opinion, but I'm wondering what yours is, being a Chicago kid.
Look, being a Chicago kid, my thing is whatever MJ does, as long as he's not committing murder or treason, it is okay with me. If he wants to have the last say, the greatest of all time, aside from maybe Muhammad Ali, the greatest athlete that has ever graced this earth. So I'm okay with Michael having his fingerprints all over it, whatever. I wasn't watching the documentary for journalistic integrity, I'll tell you that, Rick. I was watching it to appreciate and hear the stories and the greatness behind Michael Jordan because, to my knowledge, this is the most in depth we've ever heard Michael Jordan talk about some of these situations. Because, as you know, he doesn't do many interviews. He's very quiet, he's reserved, he's private, and he has earned the right to do so. But I loved every single minute of it. If guys want to come out and say, oh, they didn't interview me or whatever the case may be, look, you're not Michael Jordan. It's not your story. It's his story. You were a part of his story. Horace Grant, look, I know this sounds like I'm crying over spilled milk, Rick, but I still haven't forgiven Horace Grant for going down to Orlando to play with the Magic and leaving us via free agency. So if Horace Grant wants to gripe, that's fine. Cry all you want, Horace. Thank you for the 3 championships. But you beat us back in 95. So I don't have any sympathy for Horace Grant whatsoever. I love seeing the perfectionist that Michael Jordan was, how much he was driven to be this next level. I was having a conversation with my girlfriend, and I said, the only guy that resembles that kind of greatness, and he passed away this year, so is Kobe Bryant. There's
Hmm.
nobody. LeBron doesn't have that killer instinct. Guys nowadays don't have that killer instinct. It's that killer instinct, that desire to be the absolute best at your craft. And when I'm watching how Michael prepared, when I'm watching his mannerisms, when I'm watching how loose he was even before games, and his approach, he was so cerebral in what he did. He was an absolute master at what he was able to do on the basketball court, and I loved it. Even if it was very slanted to Michael Jordan, it was phenomenal, and I loved it.
Well, people forget the reason why Kobe and Shaq had the issues that they had was because Kobe was just as demanding of his teammates as Michael Jordan was. And he probably got that from his relationship with Jordan. But, I mean, Kobe came right out and said that he told Shaq that if you weren't a lazy son of a bitch, you'd have been the best player that the NBA ever seen. And they had that same mentality. My thing was is like people complaining about making Kraus, who has passed away, look like the villain, or showing some of the stuff with Scottie Pippen. I mean, that stuff's just the truth. Jordan didn't shy away from his gambling stuff. He didn't shy away from his dad's death, and how people pointed fingers that maybe it was his gambling that put his dad in that position. He didn't shy away from how he punched Steve Kerr in the face during practice. Like, he showed his bad sides too. But you said he earned the um, ability to be private. And I actually would say that he was kind of forced to be that way, because when you walk out of anywhere and there's 5,000 people trying to get at you, you almost got to go into that. So I loved every minute of it too. I remember watching the second three-peat. I don't remember a lot of the first one because I was younger. Um, but I mean, I idolized him growing up, and it was awesome to see the whole story, and remember those days of when Chicago Bulls basketball was really good, because you and I have had this discussion for a
Oh,
long time. Garpax, the Bulls were not good for a very long time outside of the Derrick Rose, the short period before Derrick Rose was injured. It's been tough to be a Bulls fan.
very much so, and I'm optimistic, Rick, that we get now with the new GM, and now with the front office. Hopefully, Paxson can kind of just hold the title and not really have any say so. But we don't know if that's the case or not. I know that Jeff Tanaka, the trainer, his contract hasn't been renewed, and I'm okay with that because the Bulls have had a lot of like little injuries over the past several years, and I think that they really need to invest more in a full on quality training system to prevent some of these guys, some of these freak injuries that continue to haunt them. I think they have a nice young crew, but I am With the Bulls, I'm pessimistic because of how much I've been scorned over the past 20 years following those championship runs. I mean, one Eastern Conference Finals appearance since the glory days of Jordan. That's unacceptable. It is Chicago, Illinois, not Milwaukee, Illinois. We can't have a Milwaukee mentality. And what I mean by that is having that small town mentality. We need to be like the New Yorks and the Los Angeleses, where we demand a winner. If not, we're not going to show up. And before the coronavirus stuff, the United Center had a really good crowd. I'm like, why are you supporting this garbage? Like, the days of Jordan are 20 years in the rearview mirror. I get the first 5 years, maybe first 10, but after that, come on, guys, wake up. See, Red Nation, you affect ownership if you sit at home and hurt them in the pocket.
One of our guys said, "Whoa, whoa, easy on Milwaukee." um, I do want to get to some questions here a little bit later. So if
Yeah.
you've got any questions for Ray, and if you're just tuning in, Ray has been announcing boxing and MMA for what, 15 years now?
Yeah, about 15 years, half my life, my
15
man. See, I
years.
am.
He's announced the okay. Well, let's just ask you this question,
Mm,
because I do want to get into Chicago Bears talk because
yeah,
we are mostly a football thing.
yeah.
But out of all the events that you've ever done, from the outside looking in, I would guess Mayweather McGregor.
Mm.
But what is your favorite event that you have worked?
No, that's it. You're absolutely right, Rick. Is Mayweather McGregor? That whole tour was it was unprecedented. Every stop we had, there were thousands of people. It was like as I'm watching The Last Dance, and people kind of go crazy over the Bulls of the '90s. It was somewhat similar to how I experienced being a part of that tour with 4 cities in 4 days: L.A., Toronto, Brooklyn, and London, and it was just unbelievable. Everywhere we went, these guys, Mayweather and McGregor, were loved. They were, 11,000 plus in LA, 16,000 in Toronto. I think it was 13,000 in Brooklyn, another 11,500 in London. Everywhere we went, the place was sold out. Media attention from all over. It was unreal, Rick. And to work with both the UFC and Mayweather Promotions and the PBC crew is unreal, man. Just something I will never ever forget.
So I sat next in Vegas. I sat in a table at a Panda Express
Mm,
in the Red Rock Casino, one table away from Dana White back in like 2009.
yeah.
Didn't bother him. He was with his kids, but I'm sure your interactions with him were a little more potentially exciting than mine, because I'm sure on that promotion you had some sort of interaction with him. How did that go?
It was great because what was interesting is I've been interviewing Dana White for a while. I remember interviewing him at UFC prior to UFC 90 in Chicago. I think that was back in 2007, 2008, and it's like here I am doing interviews for Dana White and for Fight News. Interviewing Dana White for like FightNews.com and stuff. And then fast forward 10, 11 years later, I'm on stage in a boxing ring with Mayweather, McGregor, and then I bring up Dana White in London. And it was like, man, like this is a guy who I was interviewing for, a website and Columbia College Radio. Now I am introducing him. We're live on ITV in England, all over the UK live, and people are watching the stream on YouTube. And here I am bringing up Dana White. So cool, relaxed. What you see with Dana White is what you get. I love how honest he is. I love how brash he is, and he's just very much he's a survivor, and he is a promoter. He's the epitome of a promoter because I love what he says. He has a line, and I use it to this day as well when I'm doing press conference stuff. When a fight is announced, don't criticize it until after it happens. And if you don't like the fight, then don't watch because the rest of the world is going to be watching. So, I am very big on saying, look, guys, like I know you may not like a particular matchup, but judge it after it happens. If it was totally a mismatch and then that's the way it happens, then you can criticize it all you want. You can criticize it before, but let it happen first because so many quote unquote mismatches have been special moments, especially in combat sports.
The guy with the colored hair that filled in for somebody that had to drop out of a fight late and then ended up winning?
Uh,
MMA. I can't remember, but I remember everybody saying like this dude had no chance, and then he
mhm.
went in and he won that fight. He took it late, like a week before the fight or something. I can't remember who it was. It might have been the same night that Silva broke his leg.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. That was. I
That
mean,
was one of the nastiest things I've ever seen in
oh,
sports.
awful, awful, awful what happened to Anderson Silva. I think he is the Michael Jordan, by the way, of MMA for what he was able to do. There was a period for 5 or 6 years where he was absolutely dominant, and that's somebody that kind of newer fans are like Anderson Silva. They kind of heard about him, but Anderson Silva back in the day was unbelievable and untouchable.
Somebody in the chat said Matt Petruzzelli.
Petruzzelli, yeah,
Petruzzelli.
believe so.
Yeah. Let's get back to football.
Yes.
Chicago Bears.
All right, let's get into it.
Obviously, since the double doink,
Oh,
I think every Sunday you and I are both posting on Facebook of how disappointed and disgusted we have been over the
mm,
last year with the play of one Mitchell Trubisky, and
mm.
the fact that our defense is top five, and somehow we go 8-8 with the worst quarterback in the NFL, and 5 of our 8 losses were by less than a score than 2 scores. Um, how do you see the team shaping up this year, and then going further?
To win down in Tampa. But from a Bears standpoint, I know that Bears fans are like, hey, look, how could we trade away a fourth round draft pick, whatever? It's a fourth round draft pick, guys. Like, we got a quarterback, whether he was free agency or not. There is another quarterback now that the team has gotten. They didn't pick up the option on Mitchell Trubisky. So that to me says that Ryan Pace is finally realizing that Trubisky may not be the guy. So Foles and Trubisky are going to compete for the number one position. And if Foles can't win it from Trubisky, then I really worry about the season. Unless Trubisky's made that much of improvements, but the jury is very much leaning the opposite way. I like the addition of Ted Ginn. Obviously, Robert Quinn, I think, is going to add another wonderful edge rusher. I love him and Mac together as bookends. I think they're going to cause havoc. It made me sad that Prince Amukamara moved on and is now with the Las Vegas Raiders. But, the fact that we have Eddie Jackson still there, who I think is one of the best secondary players in football today, I think the Bears are going to have a quality season because, as you mentioned, 5 losses by one possession or less. You look at the Raider game for me, the Charger game, you win both, two those games, you're in the playoffs at 10-6, and that's with a very limited Mitchell Trubisky and an offense that looked very anemic. I was at the game at the Coliseum when they played the Rams, and the Rams were there to be beat, and the Bears just could not do absolutely anything on Sunday Night Football. So this is a team with the defense. The defense is going to keep you in games. But if you have Nick Foles, who even gets to 80 to 85% of what he was able to do in Philadelphia, I don't know if I told you leading up to the game against Philadelphia, Rick, a couple years ago when the Bears played the Eagles at Soldier Field in the first round playoffs, I would have been okay with Carson Wentz playing for Philadelphia because I think the defense would have rattled Carson Wentz. The guy that I didn't want to deal with was Nick Foles because he is comfortable in the pocket. He has poise. He knows he's going to get hit. He delivers passes. He knows his limitations. He knows his strengths. I like that about Nick Foles. And people will point to me and say, well, he wasn't able to beat Minshew for the starting quarterback position in Jacksonville. That's an unfair situation because with the way that Minshew was kind of having his off the field persona with the stash and how people loved him and everything else, the cons down in Jacksonville need to sell tickets. So do you think that they wanted to go to an older Nick Foles to try to sell tickets if the team as a whole wasn't ready to win? No, they wanted a flashy quarterback like Minshew to be able to lead the offense. So I'm going to debunk that rumor right away that I don't think Foles was given the the ability to win the starting quarterback position. I think the Bears are going to be very, very good. I think the Vikings got better. I think the Packers got worse. The Lions are the Lions. So the division, in my opinion, are between the Bears and the Vikings, because Aaron Rodgers seems to be a very, very unhappy person, which I'm okay with because of the fits and the misery that he's caused us for many, many years. Also, I think the Dallas Cowboys have gotten better. I think that Jerry Jones, I know people say, well, they'll win when Jerry Jones moves on. Look, I had an opportunity to work and alongside Jerry Jones on a promotion last year down at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. And I'll tell you what, nobody wants to win more for his entire franchise than Jerry Jones. I mean, you look at those facilities down in Dallas, Rick, and they are top notch. He is constantly putting effort and energy into how he can make this thing work with the Dallas Cowboys. That man wants to win, and I think they had a very successful offseason. So to me, Tampa, Dallas, Minnesota, I think all had very good off seasons and people to watch out for. They're teams to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. I also one of the teams that I like up there in Buffalo, another team with a very good defense, and if their young quarterback takes a step forward and the addition of Diggs there helps, I think that's a team that could be dangerous because that division is up for grabs now with Tom Brady down there in Tampa Bay. But the addition that nobody's talking about for the Bears is Akeem Hicks just coming back healthy. I mean, that defense still finished top five, but you could tell a huge difference when Hicks went down last year. And man, having Hicks, Quinn, and Matt coming at you is going to be tough for those quarterbacks. The other thing I wanted to touch on was talking about Aaron Rodgers being unhappy, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, to be completely honest with you, because we've seen some of the times that he's put on there as when he got hit, when he gets injured, when he's unhappy. So I don't know if that's a good thing for the rest of the division or not. But as always, the North is going to be a tough division. They're going to battle it out, and as always, I do think there's only three teams in contention. Detroit can. Sorry,
Yeah.
Brad. My Tuesday night co-host is a Lions fan, and I feel very bad for him. But yeah, let's see if we got any questions over here in the chat. Um, one of our writers and content producers says, I'd love to hear some kind of audio clip from Ray that says, out of the red corner, RotoHeat versus all the rest of the fantasy football websites.
Well, send it to me, man. I'll drop you a liner. Absolutely.
um. Oh, okay. So this one, I don't know how good this will turn out, but they say we would like to know Ray's favorite memory of Rick.
We're just hanging out at AFA. Like the one thing about you is that you are very enthusiastic and you're passionate. I love people that are passionate about something, especially the fight game that's my life. So Rick, you always came. You were always very passionate, and I like positive people, and you're a positive person. Always have been, and that's the thing. I vibe with positive people and energy, and especially down there in Fort Wayne. That before going there with AFA, I didn't know how much fun I could have down in Fort Wayne. I had a freaking blast down there. People love going out, having fun, partying, good food, good drinks, and they came out to support local fighters. So that to me is like, man, those are some fond memories without a doubt. So it's just your energy and the fact that you love the fight business and definitely love being in the mix and stuff. So and you supported the show with FortWayneNightOut.com. So that was very good on your part, and we loved having you.
Well, that was good. I'm glad we kept it PG.
Yeah, exactly. We had
Because
some we had some good times after hours, man, no doubt.
absolutely. Um, okay, Brad said, and I don't know if there will be anything
Mm.
scheduled, but is there anything that you've got coming up where we can support you? Obviously, I don't know if there's any boxing that's scheduled
Mm.
yet, but do you have anything in the near future that you know of?
Well, nothing from a boxing standpoint, but I've heard some overtures. I read, I get my information very much like you guys on Twitter and stuff. I'm one of the last people to know. because they're worried about the fighters and the matchmakers and securing, the venues and stuff. But I'm hearing that potentially, July, August, boxing might be back. Top Rank has already planned 3 cards for the month of June. So it sounds like we're trying to make strides to get boxing back. But what I do is, as you mentioned, my interviews and stuff every single Monday, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific time on Premier Boxing Champions Instagram page, Instagram Live. I interview a different fighter, during the course of, on those Mondays about what they're doing, how they're feeling, their training regimen, and just, random different fighters and stuff. And that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. So I know guys, I've talked to many, many guys, and just hearing, some overtures. Guys are staying in shape. Guys are staying ready. And guys know when this thing is over or sports start to come back, then it's going to be like, okay, are you ready? Because they're going to call you, and you better pick up that phone. And if you're not ready, well, shame on you. Like myself, Rick. I mean, I've been watching old boxing and trying to stay sharp and paying attention to the news and everything else. I don't like watching news in general, but I like watching, keeping up with what's going on sporting wise. So, I know that guys are staying in shape and are ready to go.
Absolutely. Another question here. With the oversaturation of sports sites and mediums out there, how did you differentiate yourself from others, and what advice do you have for others in the field to help them stand above the rest?
What I would say is when I came around, it was very much the early days of MMA before the boom happened. So this is back before mixed martial arts was even regulated by some of the state commissions throughout the country. Now I believe it's all 50 states that it's regulated, et cetera, et cetera. So I came along early, doing local events. And I mean, I did local events where, Clay Guida fought, Miguel Torres, guys like Jeff Curran, Eddie Wineland. There are so many fighters that I announced for that have fought the UFC, or, Darren Elkins is a guy that just fought in the UFC on Saturday. Had another terrific fight, lost, but I mean, the guy's a warrior. I was a matchmaker when I was 19, 20 years of age before I even went to AFA. That was a couple years later. So I was making fights and, part of a promotional entity when I first started off in the business. So I learned all aspects of the business. Whatever you get into sporting wise, try to learn all aspects. Try to talk to a marketing person. Try to talk to a coach. Try to talk to a player. Because, Rick, when you get into a specific sport or area of entertainment, you should know all aspects of it. So my standpoint, I was a matchmaker. I was a publicist for a few events. Starting off, I was a reporter, a ring announcer, play-by-play commentator, wrote press releases, helped to organize. I was an executive producer on a couple of telecasts. So it's learning all aspects of the business so that you can see it from every which way. And when you continue to move up in what you're doing, you can kind of blend it all together. So when I'm doing press conferences, I'm thinking like a reporter when I'm asking these questions to the fighters. But then I'm also conducting the press conferences because I understand the promotional aspect. We have to sell tickets. We have to, make sure that the television audience is aware of what's going on, that we're placating to them, the local audience. What local market are we in? What drives them? So it's really understanding your sport, your craft, inside, outwards, and try to focus on one thing and make that your primary strength, but then also have other tools that you can do. So if you can be a reporter, but you could be a play-by-play person, or you could do this, you could do that. The more you can do, the better it is. It's like a 5-tool player in baseball. You will always have a job if you can play multiple positions on the field. That's my best advice.
Absolutely. So where do you see yourself? What's the future of Ray? What's the end? Do you have an end goal? Do you want to be the play-by-play commentator for everything? I always said watch out Bruce Buffer because this dude's voice is coming for you, but maybe that's not what you see yourself doing. Where does Ray want to go, and what does that look like?
Well, what I would hope to do is, I have different things that I'd like to do in my career, Rick. Right now, I'm very fortunate to be able to work with, FS1, Showtime, be in the Fox family, work for Premier Boxing Champions, TGB Promotions has been very good to me, doing press conferences and stuff. And it's been a blast. But my end game is to be the lead play-by-play man for Premier Boxing Champions on Fox. I want to be the main man on Fox. I know that I got some years, and there's some other people that have the position right now, but that's what I want to do. I grew up watching HBO boxing and Showtime boxing. HBO had Jim Lampley. Showtime had Steve Albert. I grew up watching those guys call fights, and I loved what they did. And for me, that is my main goal, is to be the play-by-play man on the pay-per-views here in the United States. I called the pay-per-views, but for the international audience. So I called Wilder Fury 2, Wilder Fury 1 for the international audience all over the world. That's very much a blessing, and it's a dream come true. But I have my sights set on working for the American television networks. That way they can go more so. That way I'm calling the fights on pay-per-view for the United States television audience, because this is where it's at.
I have zero doubts that you'll get there, man. I know that you have always been a hard worker. You've always done everything that you've needed to do to put on the best show and be the most prepared that you could be. So I know that it's obviously something that takes time, and it's the same thing I tell my team. I tell them, listen, like, you can't go from being a non-existent website to being one of the top sites when there's competitors out there, and even a couple of years. It takes time, and you got to work for that, and you got to keep doing that, and I have no doubt that you're going to get there. Brad wants to know, do you play fantasy football?
I used to, but now I like to focus my attention more on the games. And what I mean by that is I like to follow individual games instead of saying, well, I got Ted Ginn over here, but then I got the Steelers defense over here, or something like that. Like, it's I appreciate fantasy football, and I love watching on Red Zone how they recap fantasy, but I like to pay attention more so to the individual games and, like, the lines and stuff. So, are the Bears favored? Are they underdogs? Are they going to cover? Are they not going to cover? I like to dive more into that, because especially the fact that I have fights on Saturdays, my Sunday morning thing, I'm always on the first fight out Sunday morning to get home. I like to come home here. I now live in Southern California. Like to watch my Bears early, but I'll read in the airport. So I'll get up. Sometimes I don't even sleep Saturday night into Sunday. We get done with the event 12 o'clock, 1 in the morning. I got to go to the airport at 4. So I'm reading my NFL stuff to keep up to date on what's going on. Fantasy to me it's almost too much for me to focus on, because I got fights on Saturday, so I'm preparing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I look at the league as a whole, and for me that's a whole nother area that I'd have to focus on. So I try to really isolate myself in terms of what I'm doing. I'd rather keep track of the whole NFL instead of individual guys.
That's definitely understandable. I play too many leagues, and that makes it tough to that makes it tough sometimes. But I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy man, so I don't want to keep you too long. Is there anything else that you want to say to anybody out there? I don't know. I know that we have a Discord, we have MMA chats and boxing chats and everything that are going on. So I know we have some fans that are big into that stuff. And but is there anything that you want to say to the community uh, before you go?
No, well, all I want to say is thank you very much to you and your friendship. And like I said, I mean, this is kind of, I'm going back and I'm reminiscing, going down memory lane with you, because I can't tell you how much I appreciated the love and the support, and just the camaraderie that I experienced down in Fort Wayne, Indiana, with Absolute Fighting Alliance, and you and Steve Staley and Cody Casagrande and Justin Valilla. All of you guys, even though I haven't seen you in years, are forever lifelong friends. Because even when I wasn't, I hadn't even done ESPN Friday Night Fights yet, and you guys made me feel like $1,000,000. So the thing is appreciating that and understanding that no matter what it is in life that you do, always treat people with respect and love, and be positive, because you never know when you're going to meet lifelong friends or people that are going to influence or touch your life more than ever. And all the people that I mentioned have touched my life in many different aspects. To further that, I want to say that I hope everyone is safe and, with the coronavirus. I know that, there are billions and trillions of dollars that have been lost, and people are, losing their homes or, dealing with things, and they've lost loved ones in this entire thing. We will get past this. This is merely a knockdown, not a knockout that we're dealing with as a society. We will get up from this and we will finish this thing off. It may take a little while. We may have to go 15 rounds instead of 12, but we will get past it. But more than anything, Rick, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for the support. I love going back and forth with you. I love the fact that you wear the navy and orange and that you wear the red and black with the Chicago Bulls. So with that, I support everything that you're doing, man, and keep up the great work, bro. Anything that you touch, it's going to be successful. You've been like that since I've known you, and it's only going to continue.
Well, man, I appreciate that a lot. Obviously, I'm the type of person where I don't root against anybody to begin with, but when I'm not the guy that gets jealous that my friends are becoming successful. I want everybody to have that success. So watching you, and this is what I've always told people, like, don't get envious of people when you see them having success. That tells you that if you work hard, you and I, we started at the same spot,
Mm-hmm.
and you worked your ass off, and that's why you're where you're at. If I want to get to where I want to go, I got to work my ass off. So it's humbling, and it is encouragement for me. Whereas some other people take it a different way. So I'm gonna be rooting for you until I see you in that spot that you told me you wanted to be as the play-by-play, the top play-by-play announcer for Premier Boxing Champion.
Mm-hmm.
So. I appreciate everything that you said, all the kind words. Dylan did ask, what is your
Yeah.
favorite Conor McGregor fight?
My favorite Conor McGregor fight was when he defeated Jose Aldo. And I'll tell you why, Rick, is because Jose Aldo was undefeated, I think, for over 10 years at that point and was coming in steamrolling people. The fact that Conor and him had a promotional tour and Conor grabbed the belt from him in Ireland, I believe. He went down to Brazil and he was very animated towards Aldo down in Brazil, where Aldo is like a god down there. And the fact that it took Conor McGregor less than 15 seconds to knock him out, like that's like Babe Ruth pointing to the outfield and to the bleachers saying and calling his shot. McGregor did that. I mean, that is, he could have retired then, much less to be able to fight Mayweather and get the pay that he got then. But that fight to me, when he defeated Jose Aldo, is my favorite Conor McGregor moment. He called it, and he did it in 15 seconds. Nobody has ever done that to Jose Aldo, and McGregor did it. He could have retired right then and there, Rick, and been an icon. But the fact that he's fighting, that he fought Khabib, he had the wars with Nate Diaz. I mean, look, even though people you either love him or you hate him, as a prize fighter, you have to respect him because he brings it every single time. But Conor McGregor's win over Jose Aldo to me is number one all-time Conor McGregor moment.
Let me ask you this, because
Yeah.
you're talking about the love-hate. McGregor, we see a certain persona that he puts on.
Mm.
Is he the same guy behind the scenes? Because I'm sure you got to interact with him quite a bit on that tour. Is he the same guy? Is he an asshole behind the scenes, or is he
No.
more of a chill dude, and this is more of a facade that he puts on for the show?
Well, I think it's the fact that he's able to dial it up because that's who he is when the lights are on. The thing about prize fighters, Rick, and you know this, is that when they go ahead and they make that walk to the ring, they could be. I have met so many cool fighters and guys that are down to earth, and they are one way when the lights aren't on or when they're not in the ring, but they have to turn it on because they're stepping into that ring or the area of competition to try to gain an edge on their opponent, and they're literally risking their life when they step inside that ring or the octagon. So the fact that he's brash when he's doing press conferences, it's because it's war. It is
Mm-hmm.
essentially war. from the moment the promotion starts till the time the fight is over. So McGregor he's a family man. He's a very proud family man, very respectful. I interacted with Audiatar, his manager, who I think does a great job with him. And Connor's a very happy. He's a family man. But the fact is that he knows when he has to go back and forth on the mic towards any opponent, including Floyd Mayweather. He is more than up to the task, and the notorious MMA, or the notorious one, comes out. So that's why he dials it up, certainly, but he's very gracious in his off time.
Somebody over on Facebook said, I joined in late, but after listening to the last 10 minutes, I'm excited to start the video from the top. What a great speaker. I'm not a huge fight fan, so I don't know much about Ray, but I enjoy his dialogue. Do you have any podcasts? Do you do any podcasting?
No, I don't do any podcasting. What I do, Rick, is what I mentioned is that every Monday I do a video interview, live on Instagram Live, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific time on the Premier Boxing Champions page. So that's what I do every single Monday. There are a lot of podcasts out there and stuff, and if the right situation presented itself, but with my schedule, before the coronavirus, it was I'd be home for a couple of days, it'd be laundry and doing errands, and then back on the road. Press conference on Thursday, weigh in Friday, fight Saturday, home Sunday, and then we do it all over again the following week. Vegas fight weeks are even that much more extensive. So that's how it went. But I love doing these video interviews, these Instagram live interviews with different fighters, because it gets we are able to go more in depth and take a more of a closer look at what these fighters are all about when they're not in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched the one that you did yesterday or Monday. The kid was like, what, just turned 18 or something like that?
Didn't you? Yeah, Vito Malnicki Jr. Yep.
That's crazy. I don't feel like getting my ass whooped by an 18-year-old kid. Getting to that age where I'm just an old guy. Um, Again, some other comments that we've got. Ray's an awesome listen, very positive, very motivational. Um, let's see. Favorite McGregor chair throw at a bus. Uh, Ray seems like a good dude. Thanks a ton for coming on. Yeah, the community loved you, loved having you on here, and obviously they hear that voice and they understand why you're doing what you're doing. It's a very distinctive voice that you've got, and again, I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we all have a little bit more time than we normally do, but I hope to be able to get you back on in the future, and maybe we can talk about how stuff starts kicking back up after it gets going. But at the same time, I know you've got that busy schedule, so uh, I wish you nothing but the best. I'm always going to be watching and supporting, and I can't wait to see you as that main play-by-play guy there on FS1 or whatever station it ends up being on.
Hey, Rick, I greatly appreciate it, man. Anytime you need me, you let me know. You are my guy, and I will make some time. As long as I'm not on an airplane, I will be here for you, bro. Continued success in everything that you're doing. Love reading your stuff and everything. And more than anything, during this time, is that we have to remain positive and just, things are going to be on the upswing. We will get past this. And thank you to all those people that are looking after us, the healthcare workers, the nurses, the doctors, the policemen, the firemen, whatever. Set politics aside. Thank you to them. Thank you to the UPS workers who are bringing us things on a consistent basis, the grocery store workers. Thank you to all of them. They are the ones that need to be applauded, not some of these professional athletes, because they are the ones that are on the front lines, not us. Thank you guys very much. Stay safe, and look forward to seeing you on television, hopefully, in the near future.
Awesome, Ray. And for everybody else, we'll be back Monday with the IDP stream and Tuesday with some more Dynasty 1QB talk and all that fun stuff. So just tune in. We'll have some more videos dropping this